Good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Price. I'm a consultant here at IBIS, and we're going to be talking today about project accounting. And I realize project accounting is a very broad subject, but I'm going to try to talk about some things that are specific to some of the advantages of using project accounting. Probably aware that some of you are already using project accounting, and some of you may not, and just want to find out how you might be able to use it for your company. So I'm hoping that I'll touch on some subjects that will be informative for all of you, because we will be talking about the benefits of using it, as well as a couple of features that you may or may not be using currently. Okay, one of the greatest benefits of using project accounting is, years and years ago when people didn't have modules such as project accounting, they might attempt to use their general ledger account numbers to track specific projects. And we're going to talk in a few minutes about what we may identify or define as what a project is, because a project can have a broad definition between what we consider to be a project. So we'll talk about that specifically a little later on. But years ago, people might use their general ledger to track specific projects. For example, building a house. So you might have a range of account numbers that would be specific to house 1 or house 2. And it could potentially make your chart of accounts very large. So what project accounting allows you to do is to connect projects with your company's financial statement without keeping the detail on your balance sheet. For example, we've got work in progress for this house that we're talking about that's in progress. We might just have one work in progress account on our balance sheet, but if you go over into project accounting, you may have multiple projects that are rolled up into this one account that's called WIP on our balance sheet. So that over in the module called project accounting, we can track all of the details related to the specific project. And there are multiple ways, transactions types that we can track information in project accounting over to our general ledger, and we'll talk about that more. Project accounting also allows you to, as I said, integrate directly with your financial statements and your general ledger. It also provides extensive reporting in Great Plains related to your projects for profitability and those types of things. We also have a web-based product on the business portal, which we'll talk about as well, and you have reporting available to you using analysis cubes. And project accounting ensures that you have accurate accounting and billing processes all the way through the life cycle of the project. So if I'm over on my general ledger, as we know as accountants, our general ledger is tracked on whatever fiscal period year our company reports on. But over in project accounting, the life cycle of that project can run across a fiscal year, so we can track expenses and costs and billings related to this project if it spans more than one fiscal year. So we can track all of that over the life cycle of that project. And it also allows us to track project statuses, whether the project is complete, whether it's in an estimate status easily, and to track the profitability using all of our expenses against labor and equipment and materials in any of our employees or contractors that we may have working on our projects. We can also track payroll benefits specific to our project. Let's talk about some ways that we could use project accounting, and I'll give you some examples of ways that I have customers that are currently using project, and they can be very different. Project accounting is somewhat customized in that any customer that I work with that uses project accounting, they all use it differently, in that they may not all use all of the different transaction types, or they may not use both contracts and projects, and we will talk about how the difference between a contract and a project in terms of Great Plains terminology in a few minutes. But for example, a general contractor could use project accounting to track the cost at a specific building that they might be building. And they're going to track it in terms of labor and cost, or subcontractors, or any of that type of thing that they need to track cost on. And they can also use it to bill against. I also have customers that use project accounting internally to track their own capital projects. For example, if a company is building their own building, or they may be able to track all of that in-house, or if they're doing a software implementation, such as a Great Plains implementation, they can use project accounting to track all of the costs specifically related to putting this new software program into place. And also track their employees' time as it relates to the time that they've spent on that project. I have a utility company that uses project accounting to track projects out on the field. For example, if they're building a new water treatment plant internally for the county, they would track the costs specifically related to the building of that water treatment plant. If a couple of years ago we had some flooding in the Atlanta area, this utility company had a lot of projects and repairs to dams and things like that, specifically related to things that they needed to track costs on, and mainly for their internal employees, to keep track of how much time it took to make the correction to all of this damage done by the flooding. Also worked with a company whose job is to build large conveyors for glass handling equipment. And the time period for building this equipment can go from anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. So instead of using a manufacturing type software, they use project accounting because it spans such a long period of time, and it also takes a huge amount of resources within their company as they buy supplies and even utility costs within the building that they actually can burden the job with. I have another company that has seminars that they put on during the summer and spring months, and that project accounting would allow them to track the costs related to the travel to these seminars, any of the supplies used for these seminars. So this just gives you an idea that project accounting is not just for what you might think in terms of just contract accounting or job costing accounting. It can be used in a lot of different ways within your company to track costs. So if you currently look at your general ledger account numbers and realize that you're using either a segment or a group of account numbers to track specific costs, depending on the level of detail or how much time it's taking you to keep track of this, the project accounting might be a good fit for tracking specific costs like that. Okay. In project accounting, we actually have 4 tiers or levels of information that we can track specific to the contracts and the projects within Great Plains. At each of these levels, we can actually create reports, of course. So the customer could be, if we're talking about in terms of what we talked about a minute ago, the customer, if you're doing an internal project, might be your company. That could be the customer. So the customer is the highest level that you either want to report on or to track information on. The next level is going to be our contract, and the customer can have many contracts. So there can be a one-to-many relationship between the customer and the contract. Below that is going to be what we call our projects, and there can again be many projects under one contract. So there can be a one-to-many relationship between the contract and the project, or a contract and the project can be the same. I have many customers that don't need that extra level of detail in reporting. They have both the contract and the project the same. So for example, I do have a customer that uses their contract actually as the year in which the project begins. So the contract might be an internal customer. The customer might be an internal customer. The contract would, in this case, be the year in which the contract was started. And then under that would be my projects that were started within that year. The next level is going to be our cost category, which is the level at which we transact. So that if I am creating a purchase order, my cost category might be just materials. It might be roofing materials, for example. It might be a specific type of employee. It might be an engineer versus an in-house employee that, maybe clerical work employee. So the cost categories are the detail in which I'm going to transact. When I am doing a transaction in Great Plains that is for project accounting, I'm always going to see my project and I'm always going to see my cost category. So it's important that as I create these project and cost categories and connect them together and build my budgets, that I make it easy for the user who's actually creating the transaction to identify the specific project and cost category that I'm working with. Integrating with other modules. Great Plains Project Accounting has multiple types of transactions in which cost and billing can be done within project accounting. So let's go over some of those. Of course, first of all, general ledger. Every transaction that I post within a window that uses project accounting information, I can ultimately ensure that that transaction posts through to my general ledger. And that is also a setup choice as well. For those of you who are familiar with Great Plains, that is a choice that you make. Accounts receivable. Project accounting shares the customers that are originally set up in accounts receivable, so that when I create a project and I create a contract, I always link it to a customer, so that when I'm doing my billing within project accounting, as I post that invoice into project accounting, not only is my revenue updated in project accounting, but now that invoice that has been posted moves over into project accounting, moves over into accounts receivable, to be managed there. For example, a cash receipt, or if for some reason I have a collection issue with this invoice, that invoice now resides over in accounts receivable, but that history is over in my project in project accounting. The next module is purchase order processing. Purchase order processing is integrated now with project accounting, and we have what we call a modified project accounting window when we're looking at a purchase order. So that if I choose to look at my modified window, which includes now a project number and a cost category number, if I choose, I may give my users access to this window so that when they are creating a purchase order, they now can reference a project number and a cost category, as well as an inventory item if necessary. As these purchase orders are received, of course, this information will go into accounts payable, which is next, because project accounting shares the vendor base with accounts payable. So not only when I create a purchase order and I do a receiving, I will be able to update cost over in project accounting. Also with accounts payable, I can create employee expense reports that once posted into project accounting are now managed over in payables to be paid, just like my receiving and matching of invoices against a purchase order updates my cost over in project accounting when they're posted. They're now also managed over in accounts payable, just like my employee expense reports can be. So my employee becomes a vendor as I post cost, travel costs, for example, against a project cost. It now will be managed over in accounts payable once those invoices are posted into project accounting. The next module that integrates with project accounting is bank reconciliation, because cash receipts can be added before I post my billings over in project accounting. I can record on that window if I have gotten a prepayment, for example, from a customer. I can record that on my invoice so that when the invoice is posted in project accounting, the bank reconciliation module is updated with the cash receipt that was posted over in my project accounting billing window. Multi-currency. I can establish billing rates and fees in multiple currencies, so that whenever I can have projects that are done in other currencies within Great Plains. Inventory. Project accounting shares the inventory item base, and inventory items can be used in the budgeting process. They can also be added to purchase orders as I create purchase orders for my project. I can actually create a budget in project accounting that has specific items that I anticipate using on my project. And I can also add the quantities that I anticipate using and needing on my projects, as well as establishing the cost that I'm going to cost against my project in the budget as well. Also, in terms of inventory, I can still choose to use non-inventory. I can use sales inventory items, or I can use flat fee or service items as well in project accounting. For payroll, payroll also shares the employee base with project accounting, so that as I am doing, if I choose to do timesheet entries in project accounting, once I post these timesheet entries in project accounting, that information, along with the hours that these employees work, can, if I choose to, integrate with payroll. That is a choice that you make with setup. So it's possible that even for, first of all, if you don't use payroll in Great Plains, you can still use timesheet entries in project accounting and track hours that your employees are using and costing against a job, and you can choose a specific cost per hour rate if you choose to. That will be job costed or project costed. So you can use timesheet entry without payroll, but as a part of setup, you can choose whether you want your timesheet entries in project accounting to post into payroll. When you go to post your timesheet entries in project accounting, it will ask you which batch you would like to put these entries into. So that's an option at the setup, and it's also an option when you're posting how you want them to post through into payroll. Okay, in the business portal, for those of you who have the business portal, or if you're familiar with analysis cubes, you can use this information in project accounting. Business portals allows your employees to be able to go to a web-based service, enter in their project time, enter in employee business expenses related specifically to projects. And they can do this online from anywhere at any time that they need to update their projects. And Business Portal allows these timesheet entries and these expense reports to be reviewed and approved before the information appears in Great Plains. Also in Business Portal, you are able to create and view project reports, so that if you have users who don't have access to Great Plains, they can use the portal to print project profitability reports, and they can also use analysis cubes if your company uses analysis cubes. There are some reports that have been created specific to project accounting with analysis cubes. So again, this is a web-based service that if you have employees who are not using Great Plains, they can use the portal to get this information. Also, Business Portal, if you choose to add additional products, you can import in employee time using handheld devices, time clocks, And there are other applications that allow you to track time specific to these projects that are web-based. Okay, let's go into project accounting and look at our projects. Just kind of review what we've talked about as far as our hierarchy. I have pulled up a contract maintenance screen, and you notice that I have a customer ID here. I have a contract ID, which is all required. Anything in red is going to be required. And then down at the bottom, in this case, these are my projects. Remember my hierarchy, my customer is first, my contract is second, and my project is third. So down here under my projects, in this case, I have multiple projects that are attached to this one contract. I'm going to go to my project window. Okay. In my project window, I again have my customer ID noted, and I have my contract noted, and now I'm creating my project. In this window, this is where you have the option of putting in your budget. I'm going to click on my budget. And in my budget window, this is where I can go in and put in my cost categories that I've created and put in my anticipated budget and quantities for each of these items on this budget. Remember, I said our cost category is the line item where we will actually transact. Okay. So in this case, we've got several cost categories here, and our transaction type is employee expense. And down here we've got airfare, which is also employee expense. So when we create our cost categories, we must make them specific to the transaction type that we will be transacting on. Okay. So in this case, some of our line items have got some budget, and a couple of them don't have any profit amount. So let's go back again and review our forecast and talk a little bit about how we budget and forecast within project accounting. When I initially create my contracts and projects, and if I choose to put in a budget, as long as my project is in a status called estimate, I am at the point where I am creating a brand new project. I am in what we call baseline. So before I start transacting against this project, I go in and I put in what I identify as what my baseline budget is going to be. So at that point in time, my baseline and my forecast will be the same, because I have just started this project and I am still in an estimate mode. So they will continue to be the same. So if I ran any budget to actual, it would be using the baseline, and the forecast would be the same. Once I am ready to begin transacting against my projects, I'll need to change the status of my project to open. Once I am in an open status for a project, and I begin posting transactions against all of these cost categories, if you notice, I am no longer able to make changes to my baseline. I can only make changes now in my forecast. So when I need to make a change to my forecast, I can either go into the window and just make a manual change to my forecast, or we can use what we call change orders in project accounting. what change orders allow us to do is to track the fact that I've made a change to my budget. So when you set up your project, you will decide whether you're going to track change orders. And if you choose to do that, you'll actually have to go in and process a change order, and we'll go through that in a minute. In this case, in this job, our original project amount, which would have been our baseline project when we originally created this project, was $434,000. There happens at this point to be an unapproved change order in process for $9,200. So once this change order is approved, my new project amount will be $443,000. So let's go and look at our change order window. In our change order window, we can make specific decisions about how the change order is going to be reflected on our budgets for a project. I can choose to track the changes to my budget from the baseline or from my forecast. And you can, it will keep track, it will keep a history of changes made to this. It actually will tell me what type of change order it is. Is it internal? Has the customer requested this change order? Is it just internal? And whether it's been approved or where it stands in the process. And I can actually process this change order, which will then update the information over on my project card. Okay. Okay, the next thing I want to talk to you about, I have a lot of customers that currently using project accounting, but first of all are not using change orders, which we just discussed. And then another thing that I have customers not using is project templates. What a project template allows me to do is to create a template with specific criteria, and mainly for most customers that want to use a template, it's because they have so many different cost categories. It makes the setup of these projects much quicker and streamlines the setup time and standardizes the process, so that when I have a new project, and let's say if I have 20 or so cost categories that I always want to appear on my project, instead of having someone go in and have to add every single cost category to my budget on my project, the template allows me to copy that information down and makes it easier as part of the setup. After copying the template, changes can be made specific to the contract or project as needed. So let me show you one of the templates. And if you notice by looking at the template, it's very similar to the contract window. Okay? Because this is my contract window and this is my template. So I have a contract template name, and then I also have my projects listed down at the bottom. So I'm going to click on one of my projects in the bottom and open it up and go to my budget. And these are all of the cost categories that would be copied into my project or my contract. When I'm creating a new contract in Great Plains, I have the choice of copying my templates from either the project window or from the contract window. I can also, as you see, copy. I can copy either from the template that I've created, or I can copy from an existing budget. So I can actually take an existing project and copy information over into a new project with the same information. Again, it speeds up the data entry time. Okay, in project accounting, I wanted to go back and review all of the different transaction types that we have for project accounting. So you see here in the top, we have, and we've talked about some of these specifically, but we can get costs into a project through timesheet entry. So I'm going to pull up a timesheet entry. And as I mentioned before in the project hierarchy, as we are creating our project, it's important that you make this project number or information easily identified, because as you can see, when you are in the timesheet entry window, you see just the project number, and then we have just the cost category ID. Now in our employee expense entry window, it's the same. And as you can see, our employee is again set up as a vendor, and we can go in and identify a project number and a cost category again, and this information will flow over to our project. Now another thing that I've had customers use in terms of what types of projects that customers want to track possibly internally, and one of those is administrative jobs. I have some customers that want to keep track of internal things that are going on. They want to know how much time someone may spend filing, for example, or if someone spends time actually processing billing and those types of things. So I can actually have internal projects. So back to different types of projects you can use within Great Plains. Don't think of project accounting again just in terms of things that you're going to sell. They can be things that you're tracking internally. So that's our employee expense entry. And then we also have equipment log. Equipment logs allow us to track information against a project for a specific piece of equipment. For example, I have a customer who has large pieces of equipment like a backhoe, and they may use this backhoe on a daily or weekly basis on a project. And equipment logs allow us to keep track of that information, specific on an hourly or daily basis, whatever, so that there's a cost identified with that piece of equipment that will appear on my project accounting cost. I have another customer who uses project accounting. They own large equipments, and I believe they're called boom trucks. And so each truck, and they're huge pieces of equipment, so each truck is a project. And so therefore with that type of project, this project never ends. So they're keeping track of all the costs and related to this one truck. So the truck is the customer, and the contract might be the year in which that truck was sent out to be used on a job, because their jobs may be long-term. They may run a few days, they may run a few months. So that just gives you an idea of not only could that large piece of equipment be actually a project within project accounting, but that large piece of equipment can also be a piece of equipment that we charge cost against on the equipment log. Okay, miscellaneous logs are what I would call journal entries to projects. So that if I've got a cost, an arbitrary cost that I need to charge to a job, let's say for example I had some travel costs that were posted and were inadvertently left out of project accounting. They were charged, but I didn't ever get a cost over on my project. I can go back to my miscellaneous log and I can record that cost against my project because it didn't actually happen through, say, an employee expense window. Inventory. As I mentioned earlier, as I create purchase orders, I have the option of using inventory items to place on my purchase order so that as I buy inventory items, they are specifically costed to my projects. But I can also use this inventory transfer window, and if you notice in this window I have a project number and a cost category numbered referenced on this window as well. So I can also take inventory items and transfer them to the project if I choose to do so to cost out. And I can also transfer items away from my job. If I bought 10 items to the job but I'm only going to need 5, I can actually use an inventory transfer window to take 5 of those items cost off of my job as well. So I hope this has given you guys some ideas of some different ways to use project accounting, kind of think outside the box in terms of how can I utilize this project. Project accounting setup can sometimes be a little tedious, but as you can see through going the transaction windows, its use is very user friendly from a transaction standpoint to record these costs. And I'm hoping I hope it's given you some ideas of some new ways to think of how you might use project accounting. If any of you have any questions, I believe there is an email.
info@ibis.com.
So if you have any specific questions how your company may use project accounting, I'll be glad to answer those for you. And again, it's info@ibis.com. Thank you.